Thanks everybody for staying. The power of cookies. My name is Juan Obando. I'm a visual artist. I usually work with video and performance, but most of it is using it as a mediation between people, and especially between people and institutions. I'm very interested in the interface between those two actors and the different gaps that form where institutions include or exclude certain sectors of people. I'm also an assistant professor of art at Mass Art in the Studio for Interrelated Media department. And that's another great part of my life, which creates that division. I'm an artist, but I'm also an educator. So I want to show you a couple of pictures from projects that I did before that exemplify this interest of mine. This project is called Museum Mixtape, and it's a video album that I did in the southeastern part of the United States, where there's a big concentration of great contemporary art institutions, and also in conversations with the people that I was meeting in one of my interests, which is music, live music, and usually like alternative subcultures, which was hip hop. I realized that there was a huge disconnection between certain populations and these big institutions, like the big museums in the South. So I devised a proposal called Museum Mixtape, and I was awarded a commission by the New Museum of Contemporary Art in New York to be able to do this. And I traveled all around the southeastern part of the United States, and we created a video album in which emerging rappers from the South were going to museums and do a critical intervention in the form of a freestyle hip-hop song, using the museum as a different space. The question was, what do I do with this empty space? There were moments that I would go to big museums, like the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art in Winston-Salem, and it would be just me and the security guard. So what do we do with this architecture? What can happen in this space? And how can we totally divert the discourse of this space? I also work in Colombia, where I'm from. This is a project called the Lechona Art Institute that kind of like also merges these two sides of me as an educator and as an artist. The Colombian art scene has become kind of like hip in the last years, but the educational institutions have not provided an education that is kind of like transforming young people into professional artists that have a knowledge of the system of what contemporary art, the art market is. And we created this project with my friend. Lechona is kind of like a barbecue, so imagine like the Barbecue Art Institute, something like that. So it was like a kind of like fun taking, but it's also deep rooted in a research that I do in terms of what we call unschooling. It's kind of like post-academic knowledge, that type of knowledge that you learn in the street, that you learn from talking to your friends, that you learn from other people. Like, how can we create an art institute that teaches art without the kind of like the limitations of an artistic institution or like an academic institution? This project is great, and it is continuing because it's very self-sustainable. The project, we work with young people, we learn a lot from them, and we also teach from the perspectives of being a professor in an institution outside of the institution. Also, all the stuff that sometimes I don't have the capacity to teach in an institution, like for example Mass Art, I can go and teach to these people, and that way I also learn a lot from them. So when I was part of these conversations for the Boston Artists in Residency, I learned through the Department of Education, the Office for Education, that there's this new program, the High School Redesign Boston. The High School Redesign Project is an initiative to craft a future vision for Boston public high schools, in which every student graduates prepared for college, career, and life. But this is very important for me because at the same time, when we're talking about redesigning, when there's a new design, there's something that's left over from that. So what happens with the past? Like, we're looking for the future. What's happening with this past that's going to be left behind after this plan for the redesign of the Boston high schools happen? There's also the Boston Public Space Initiative, which is looking for proposals from all of us as citizens, as creators, as thinkers, to propose new uses for public space. So that's why I wanted to work with those two departments, especially education, but also with urban mechanics, in order to resignify a space within the Boston landscape. And In Mazart, we have something that's really cool that we love as part of our community, which is the Mazart Restore. And it kind of like this idea of recycling. It was really cool. This is a store, and they leave, if you guys see, they leave the little carts, and people recycle our materials, and some of the students go to the Restore. The Restore is a big part of our community, and we're very proud of it. So this idea of recycling started ticking to me in the terms of like education. What happens with concepts like this, like for example, pirate learning, recycled knowledge, open source experiences, and paths that are being reimagined? How can we break the barriers that, when I was talking with the Department of Education, in Boston we have all these educational institutions, but there are so many people that are left behind. They feel excluded from the participation in these higher educational institutions that are world-renowned, but they're just right next door to a lot of people, and a lot of people just see them from afar. There's no access to these institutions. Also, as a professor, as somebody who's enclosed within these barriers, what am I missing in terms of like learning and teaching outside of this institution? So the question was, what is the social function of a university? How do these local higher education institutions affect the local development? What imaginaries are about the college experience that can help us demystify it and reimagine the idea of public educational experience? How does a recycling, sustainable approach to higher education look like? So the project that I'm proposing tries to reimagine the city of Boston instead of a city of education, a city of educational institutions, as a city of learners. So who teaches and who learns and who teaches? I want to create a game of role playing with these two roles, and for that I created this project called the Boston Re-Academy, and it's an institute for the recycling of education. For example, when I was interviewing for Mazart, they told me, what class would you like to teach? And I said, I would like to teach a class that focuses on skateboarding as a way to understand city planning. And they kind of like laughed at me, and they gave me they look like, you're never gonna be able to teach that here. Well, where do those classes go? They get lost in my mind. There's a lot of professors that don't get to teach the classes that sometimes they envision. I also have some of the most better learning experiences and teaching experience with my students outside of the classroom. So what happens to that kind of like what we call shadow knowledge that is passed around there? So the idea is to create the Boston Re-Academy, and that's why the Boston Urban Mechanics comes into play. We really need a headquarter to set flag for the Boston Re-Academy. And the idea is that professors, undergraduate students from Boston higher education institutions come for a day and teach one of their favorite courses to high school students. The invitation is to model the contour of their courses into a single module for younger audiences. Classes like the fundamentals of hip hop at Harvard, decoding the Da Vinci Code at Mazart could be some of these classes. The teachers play to translate their knowledge to a new, younger audience in one session. The idea of one session is something that could be highly expanded. Like, for example, what about a teacher that wants to give a full semester class in a 24-hour marathon class? Based on, and then afterwards we work with the audience, with high school students who are meeting these professors from these institutions for the first time, in scripting a series of classes, performance, and publications based in the context. It's basically a case of broken telephone, all staged within the constructed space made out of recycled material from the Boston High School Redesign Project, open to the public, open to transformation. The idea is that all this material that the Boston High School Redesign Project is collecting from the old design of the schools comes and becomes useful, and we can redesign a space with all that material that's being left behind from the old high schools. So the project will be based on a fully working website for class donations, like for example, when you donate your clothes, you donate your books. Professors, students, and even anybody who has a class that they would like to donate to the Boston Re-Academy, they would apply into this website with a very basic form into what class they can teach. We can also go and pick your class in a van from the Boston Re-Academy. Publications, regalia, food, slogans, sports, all these could be taken into account because this is also part of that educational experience that a lot of people are missing. Yes, MIT and Harvard are free. They have free courses online, but it's more about the experience of being in a space, constructing knowledge in your own, and having that experience. So I call it the one semester highest educational experience. Anyone can teach, we all can learn. Humor and fun are key. You are key. So far, who's on board? Massart from Ken Strickland, the president of Massart, has said if this is possible, Massart could donate a space to set headquarters for the Boston Re Academy. But if you guys saw in the presentation, the Curly House will be a great space to do it, just because it's there and it's such a beautiful architecture. It's such a central part of the city that would be great to have the Boston Re Academy happen there. So there's a list of professors that are already on board that they would like to donate those leftover classes, but we also think that everybody could do it, and this is a project that would benefit a lot of people and would be a great experience to have. So thank you very much and enjoy your day.